in venture generational companies don't come often, and that all returns correlate to a few. So like when you do have high conviction in an early stage investment, the vow is sort of somewhat irrelevant because if it is a winner, it's going to win really, really big.
We've actually been having a heap of conversations with a not-for-profit that has just moved to fully cloud 2 years ago. The CEO was like, we should have just stayed on-prem. This is a risk discussion. This is a compliance and an AI governance discussion.
Yeah, note for founders, don't start a pitch with my wife says I talk too much. Information we probably don't need to know and are probably going to work out by ourselves.
They had a panel of the interstate investors, and one was from one of Australia's largest VC funds, and she gave the generic pitch that you could read on the website pretty much verbatim. Then Ben Lindsay from Investable, I think, just nailed the friggin' pitch. And the reason was he was just completely authentic. We fucking need you to succeed or we die. We need you to win because we are a small fund and we have to survive to the next fund. And it was the most memorable pitch. Like, authenticity makes you stand out.
But I think broadly, these things are, the older I get, a bit like a fart. They're better out than in. And having it's true though, having the trusted relationship, having the safety where you can just go and express without problem solving. Well, while we're waiting for Ash, good morning.
Morning.
Morning, guys.
What time did you pull up stumps last night, Aaron?
I think I left about 8, maybe 7:30.
Oh, you did well. Such a good location though. We're talking about InvestFest put on by Cohort. I think that was better than most of the government put on events.
Yeah, well, it was an incredible venue to have it right by the water down off the marina at Southport. It was bloody nice.
But even the roundtables and the investor pitching and like the number of VCs that came up from Sydney and Melbourne, they did really well. Great crew.
Yeah, really good this year. And they went for, I think, quality over volume. So they had a lot of applications that they called back for the roundtable. But
okay, that's on the applications. I thought you were going to say
on the investor side,
because if that was the case, there would have been no call up from us.
No, but it was so good and so good to see everyone. Most stayed on for the night. Like, they've got accommodation down there. So I did have a bit of FOMO driving back up to Brizzy, only to drive back straight after this. But no, it was a really, really good event.
Just going to turn off my aircon. Hang on.
What have you got this afternoon, Aaron, on the Gotti?
Heading back down, there's a breakfast event on at the moment, which we've sent Patrick to. So Patrick's representing Tribe right now, which is cool. Interesting thought. And then I'll head back down there's a lunch. The mayor's giving some talk. Tommy Tate's talking about something to do with tech. So it should be
any talk from Tom Tate generally ends up as a random rant. So
yeah. Anyway, should be good. And then I'll have a beer with Wayne Gerard afterwards and a couple of the others that are keen to catch up.
So what have you been doing in Adelaide?
I had Jed down on the weekend. We had a good time. It was good weather. And then he left Monday, and then now blinked and it's Friday.
So did he give up any, like, what's happening in social media marketing and short form video and all of that? Are there new trends emerging?
I'm sure there are, but yeah, we didn't really get into it. But he'd be able to talk to you about all of that.
Didn't talk shop at all. Jack, come on.
What did you talk about?
This is what it's like when you're an actual real human with a life. So I take my hat off to you, Jack.
Wait, you didn't talk about work? Like what?
But I've reflected on like the high smile guys that we're going to talk about today that's in the schedule. When a product and a market opportunity combine with the skills of a Jed, I think their Val has come in at $1 billion with no external capital raised. Like, those two ingredients together have propelled those two to great things.
Yeah, and both on the Gold Coast. Like, it's another good Goldie story.
Yeah. What about you, Ash?
Just being kind of head down this week. I feel like with Melbourne Cup, everyone is very much aware that the year is coming to an end. So trying to push anything that needs to get signed or need commitment on. Yeah, had a few calls with some other people in IR this week, just trying to get their thoughts on anything we can get over the line before year end, and they've all gone, yeah, I'm just focusing on this week and then we will start planning for the new year. So just trying to rejig and then see how else we can, uplift and keep things moving before Christmas.
Yeah, it's annoying, like we discussed in last episode, but I actually have had a little bit of wind in my sails this week after Aaron, Pat, and Ben have been doing some background work. And I think this next 6 weeks or so, I'm really going to knuckle down on some of the potty stuff with automation that we're building in. And we're not going to sit on our ass. And that's actually made me a little more excited than the thought of everyone disappearing.
Yeah, same for me. I'm excited. And Ash, with what you sent through yesterday, I think using this next kind of 8 weeks to build out the back end a bit more and build some automations and all those things that are all the nice to haves that we never get time for in BAU. So I'm super excited about it.
Don,
well, why don't we jump?
There was a couple of special ones in there just for you in the list. I'm not sure if you picked out what they might have been, Aaron.
I've only had a brief look through between
what list?
stuff.
Am I on this list?
Right.
It's been shared with you in Notion, but there's a whole
What's
host
Notion?
This is how to build automations and the back end to basically subvert all of our problems, Dom.
I'm essentially making myself and hopefully all of you semi-redundant.
Look, AI is going to do it anyway, so
Yeah,
Yeah,
but there's some special targeted opportunities for you in the list, Don.
I learned that my 6-year-old prep teacher doesn't quite have the sense of humour that I thought she might, because we got called into the school. Matilda's reading is just a little bit behind, and the teacher quite wants to share a few things. And so when I asked her, it's like, well, I think it's important that she is able to read so she can write properly, so she can prompt the agents and the robots that are going to make us all redundant while we're all homeless on the streets trying to defend against Terminator. Didn't and then walking out, Libby was like, why do you have to do that? I was like, I'm just joking. Come on.
Kind of.
We're in there talking about the performance of a 6-year-old. Let's give these kids some space to actually sort of develop and not start flogging the shit out of them too early.
Look, my reading age is 9 years old, so
I did, because she was going through a story that Matilda had written. I was like, well, you should see my board reports. And she's like, I don't get it. It's like, okay, I'm probably not going to be invited back to one of these meetings again.
I just love that Libby still asks the questions. Why do you have to do that?
Anyway, where were we? I think we were about to start an episode. I thought we'd just do a bit of a recap. Airwallex, Jack, you shared, and we had a little bit of a chat, has hit $1 billion in ARR, which is up from, what was it, 500,000 6 months a year? No, it was 500 a year ago. So they've doubled from 500 to $1 billion at scale. I mean, that is just unbelievable. And I think reading that, one of the lessons for me is that valuation is often important, but what investors sometimes screw up is the size of the opportunity and the size of the market, and then equate the quantum of the raise to whether a venture return can be achieved. And at the time, what was it, a $6 billion pre-money, $7 billion pre-money? If this thing continues the way it's going, and the chart that I've got up here is just up and to the right, and a lot of people said it was crazy.
Yeah, I think just a few things to add to that as well, Don, is like in venture, generational companies don't come often, and that all returns correlate to a few. So like when you do have high conviction in an early stage investment, the VAL is sort of somewhat irrelevant, because if it is a winner, it's going to win really, really big.
100%. And there was a post, one of Harry's posts, that said that, you often get told you should never put small amounts into companies and you have to get certain levels of ownership. And broadly, that is true. But if you back a generational company that gets a generational return, even a small amount in can return an entire fund. And so when those buses do come along, you got to make sure you jump on them.
I think it is a really good example of, just what we've felt recently in the ecosystem, like looking where investors are so sensitive on the pre-money valuation coming into a deal. But then it's interesting how they justify it differently for different deals based on different mechanics. But I think if someone is building something that's truly new rails on which an industry can run on, then and it's in a durable fashion, the entry price is always less relevant than the exit price. But if you can map that backwards and look at it, I just think, I don't know, I see a lot of investors rule something out just blanketly on the pre-money val without actually looking at the potential upside.
Yeah, my head always goes back to venture universities when you guys went over there, and I think they just invested into OpenAI, and like at the time was it $1 billion valuation?
No, it was like, I think it was like 18 billion.
Yeah.
And I must admit, I was in the room going, oh, you wankers, you just want to get OpenAI in the portfolio and pretend that you invested at the beginning, and it's very clever marketing, and congrats to you. Like you would kill to get into OpenAI at 20 billion right now.
Yeah, the way they presented it was the bit that annoyed me, because they had this slide of here's all the unicorns we've invested in, as if the unicorn was the outcome of their investment, but they'd invested after they were unicorns.
Yeah,
so
they'd invested it at 18 billion or whatever. But now, what was OpenAI's last raise?
Oh, they're talking about listing at, is it $1 trillion?
$1 trillion. So,
Which
this
almost sounds crazy to even say.
But 30 years ago, in that last tech boom, when people were talking about listing at $1 billion, it was also crazy. We live in an exponential world, and our brains just take a little while to catch up. But yeah, I agree with you, Jack. We didn't we? Afterwards, Aaron's like, hey, let's jump onto one of those secondary marketplaces and quickly create a portfolio of OpenAI and
I think it was like the
SpaceX.
next day. We were convinced we're setting up a secondaries fund for all I still think there's a great model there.
But I think like Airwallex is a similar example. Like when Blackbird, Airtree, everyone finally got in on the vow that was 6 billion or whatever it was. Everyone thought it was just a logo thing and trying to deploy capital to get the extra fees. But like behind closed doors, every VC that's spoken to Jack is saying the same thing. Like this guy's a generational founder and this is a generational company.
Yeah, well, Harry did a post saying that he invested 7 million 45 minutes after the show he did with Jack. Now, what he also pointed out, which has got me a little bit more of a shot in the arm for the podcast and some of the stuff we do, is that, you know, for Harry, media is just the tool, and he would never have gotten access to Jack if he hadn't built that podcast, and he wouldn't be riding that tidal wave. So I think, and it actually also dovetails a conversation last night with a founder whose husband's come into some money. They want to get into some early stage. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? If you really want to be hands-on, where's your deal flow going to come? Like, do you really have the time to go around and schlep it out, to create the relationships, do the work, to find companies? Because if you don't do that work, this is a terrible asset class to be in. And properties and shares will do better. If you do the work, okay, my suggestion to her was take a funds of funds approach. If you want access to private markets and a subset of that being venture capital, go and find the funds, which are generally emerging managers, that you can get access to that will create you a portfolio of 15 to 20 of these investments, unless you're really passionate. But I did say there's a reason why we've adopted the too stupid to quit approach, because it's not easy.
But on having the time and skill set and network and reputation, everything else to find deals, it's not just finding enough deals to invest in either. Like you've only got so many rounds in the chamber. There's an opportunity cost with every investment you make. So you have to find the best, and you could miss those generational businesses like Airwallex we're just talking about. So I think that's where having a portfolio approach that is looking at funds as part of that, because then it gives expanded portfolio exposure.
Yeah, and there's some that we're invested in. I would love to have more, but we just weren't the size and the scale and the whatever else. And so, yeah, you could go and find a good deal, but good luck getting on the cap table.
Yeah, and going forward, that's going to be the hardest bit, is actually winning the deal.
And just a shameless plug on that for Tribe, you know, I think one of the things that really resonates with me and something I always try to express when we are talking to potential investors is that quite often we get calls from other funds or from people who are on an early cap table to bring Tribe in because of the portfolio support that Aaron, Don, and Jack do. And so I think that's a value add that a lot of the other funds can't talk to. And Harry, yes, has his media as his avenue. We have the potty and some other, missions and offsites. But I do really think that the thing that separates us from the rest of our competitors and why we get phone calls of other people is because of that hands-on support that you all give. So, it is a differentiator and a reason why I truly believe in what we're building.
It was interesting last night at the InvestFest drinks. One of the investors, we were talking about the missions, and they're like, "Oh, it's so good that you do that for the ecosystem, but I just don't know how you can afford that time as an emerging manager." I'm like, "No, this is completely self-interest. Like, here's why we do it. Here's the early stage companies that we get exposure to early. Here's the investors that we take that we convert into the syndicate and into the fund." Like, I rolled it all out, and they're like, but they didn't see that strategic connection.
But it's
They
also
just
just staying on top of the trends in those markets and not being chapped in the ecosystem that we live in and the echo. So there's so many layers.
And Mark from AWS, myself, and a couple of others were in a conversation talking about the missions and someone had a similar question. And my response was, you really don't know someone is a total dick until the check clears. And so what we're also trying to do is create some situations where you can work that out before the check clears. And it's not perfect, but it's when everybody's pitching and you're doing DD and whatever else, everyone's on their best behavior. You spend a week in a different time zone, jet lagged, with an intense schedule that gets changed and whatever else, you can start to see some behavioral things come out by day 4, 5, 6, and then 7. Now, again, they're not perfect, but I think there have been some situations where you can go, maybe not. And one of the things I was saying was, because we do like the more hands-on approach, as our portfolio gets bigger, and I'm fairly aware of my own energy and our energy, the bar gets higher, because part of it is I have to go, am I going to be willing to give up all the family time that comes with a lot of portfolio support? And if the answer is yes, that's the deal to be done. If there's some behavioral things and whatever else, and you go, I just don't think we're going to gel properly.
I had a conversation with QIC about mission outcomes, and one of the questions that came up was, how come you haven't invested in more of the companies that go through the missions? And other than the staging, and often they come earlier. But what I shared was the insight that actually you have to measure what we say no to, because we get insights that other investors don't. And it's a hard thing to measure, a hard thing to quantify, but it is a differentiator, having that knowledge base.
I think this is a reasonable segue why I then put this next one in. So Oliver Curtis's firm set to triple valuation to $6 billion from a fresh raising. So Oliver Curtis is one of the co-founders of an AI factory type business called Firmus Technologies. Now, what's amazing is that in September, so that's 2 months ago, they raised at 1/3 of the value at around about $2 billion. And now they're raising again 2 months later at $6 billion. So the momentum and speed that's occurring in this space is unbelievable. It is interesting because the way they're different to, say, AirTrunk, other CDCs and allied data centers, is that their other competitors tend to own the land and rent out the server space to clients, whereas Firmus goes and rents the powered up shell, then they go and put in the AI GPUs and whatever else, and then they farm that out. And I'm going to be really interested to see how this plays out, because they're effectively taking a high moving, what I think ultimately will be a commodity product, that they're then sort of selling out that space to others. But we know that GPUs have a very short lifespan. And at the moment, they're an absolute market darling. Are they going to be able to maintain a long-term margin? Are they going to be able to build a business big enough to be able to produce a return? Time will tell. It's not our space, not our circus, not particularly concerned. But Curtis has done time in jail. Curtis is Roxy Djenko's husband, and he did time in jail for insider trading. And so it's one of those interesting stories that I just see from he could have gone to jail, come out of jail and given up, but he did his time. He's come out and he's had a crack and seemingly done well. And this is probably a slightly bizarre example, but I do sort of see founders have, and just humans in general, situations that happen in their life that they can just never get over. Now, there are some things that you probably morally should never get over. I don't know. I'm not the moral police. But anyway, I just thought this was an interesting one. And it conflicts a bit with our view of, there are certain tells that will tell you whether either someone is a good person or they're backable. The world is all shades of grey. It is not black and white.
That is true. It's an interesting question. If we had a founder come through that had been in prison for something of that nature, would we invest?
I have a feeling that with the way we carry on, I think we would be more curious than most.
Yeah, I think we'd go deeper. I agree with you on this one though, Don. Like, this is a fast-moving space, and I would imagine, wouldn't the clients of something like this just be switching out to the latest tech somewhere else? I'm really curious about the durability of this, and the mathematics model, like behind the hardware pricing and their margins. Can they just completely refresh their hardware that's in the data centers?
There's so much demand for this space that even when like new tech comes out, the companies who have the ability and budget to be able to do that next evolution can, but then those second tier clients take on infrastructure that's slightly older. It's the same as like, iPhone 17's out, but there's a whole host of people in the world that still have iPhone 12s, 13s, 14s, 15s, 16s. It's a massively growing space. But yeah, it's an interesting one, particularly with the renting side. We're seeing a lot more demand from clients that I think they'd be targeting in particular, who want to actually understand like who owns the land where the data centers are being owned, who are the investors in the data center. Like the sovereign angle is becoming bigger and bigger in terms of the conversations we're having to actually know if, shit hits the fan, who does own the GPU compute power, who can shut it off, what does that look like? So it's fascinating to see their business approach. It's very different to their competitors.
Ash, do you ever see the big end of towns, like the pendulum swinging back where it's all on premise for the larger end of town?
Yeah, we've actually been having a heap of conversations about that, where we're working with a not-for-profit that has just moved to fully cloud 2 years ago. And with all of the sensitive data they have, personal information, healthcare data, clinic information, the CEO was like, "You kidding? We should have just stayed on-prem." And I'm like, this is a risk discussion. This is a compliance, and this is also, an AI governance discussion. But there are plenty of ways it's to still have sovereign capability or have true private LLM capability, whether it be private cloud, whether it be hosting your own LLM locally. You can do a whole host of things. There's also providers that you can now do a sovereign LLM as a service, where you can essentially plug into a locally hosted, generally open source, whether it be Maverick or whether it be one of the OpenAI open source models that you can host. But they are more expensive to host in your own private cloud, or to have someone, a third party host. There's a couple of businesses, one in Melbourne and one in Canberra, that are kind of focusing on this kind of sovereign LLM as a service model.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, because I saw with Microsoft going down and then Amazon going down, CBA is under some pressure, given they've been pushing pretty well all their stuff off-prem up into the cloud and about to do a big transfer to AWS. And a whole lot of people are saying, well, when they go down, what happens?
I am going to have my own locally hosted one, just for reference.
Did you already calendar on it?
I thought you'd already have it, Ash. Yeah, it's just AI running against calendar conflicts.
No, I'm on back order for the new Mac one.
I was very sheepish this week when I had to message Ash and say, Ash, I have a conflict in my calendar and I need to move the podcast to Friday, please.
It's so good. I literally put it on red just for an hour to make him sweat too.
Good. I guess keeping the like hyperscaling theme, SwiftX has powered to a $50 million profit. But what's amazing is some of the internal numbers of where that's coming from. So SwiftX, which is it was started by Alex Harper, wasn't it? Brisbane based.
Definitely Brisbane based. I can't. It was. I think it was.
Yeah,
Alex.
there's two. I think it's Alex and there's someone else who's two best mates started it.
Yeah, and then a good friend of Tribe, Jason Tipman, took over as CEO. And we were lucky enough to have Jason at my place doing a fireside chat, pretty well just as he had taken the CEO role. But in the past year, our customer base has grown by 70%. So anybody that thinks that like crypto and whatever else is dead, with strong gains across retail, high net worth, corporate, and self-managed super funds. So it's really interesting to see, because I was talking to a financial advisor, a lot of them are getting onto the train, and a bit like the discussion of, well, there's private markets, private credit, private equity, venture. Having some of these funds allocate a little bit to this sort of digital world as a bit of a hedge. So just incredible numbers, and to be pumping out 50 million in cash, amazing.
Jason's an absolute operator. Like the energy he brings to this stuff, and the volume of other things he does as well, but still remains an incredibly awesome human. Like I remember I bumped into Jason a couple of weeks ago. Like I was bringing Tucker back from rugby training, and he was having dinner at a restaurant, and he came bolting out just to say hi. But that energy that he brings to a simple interaction like that, he brings to everything. And he's that sort of guy that you want to see him win. Like he's such a genuine, likable guy.
And a lot of companies don't fare well with the transition of power from founders to external CEO. And there's inevitably always a little bit of stuff that happens, but the way that they manage this transition and have been able to then keep the company moving to its next level is really very impressive. And I think that's why when you can find a CEO that's invested, has seen this movie before, exceptional leader, cool, calm under pressure, because they were when FTX went down and the whole crypto bubble burst and everything occurred, I don't think it was clear that this business was going to survive, and some steady hands saw it through.
Yeah, so Donnie, in the article it says they posted a $135 million loss in FY23. So I think it was just lucky that they had a lot of reserves to weather out the bear market or whatever you want to call it. And now they're back in like good days.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. You have a look at most really successful companies, they had their problem time, but they had the reserves to weather it. And too often founders and their investors by default let companies fly too close to the wind and don't ever factor in those bad times. So that's a really good point, Jack. But not everything requires venture capital, and the rich list has come out another year. But the Gold Coast base that we mentioned before, High Smiles, AFR's now stuck a $1 billion valuation on them. What was it, Jack? A number of years ago, like, because they've never taken venture capital, but what was the office fit out? Like,
yeah, I forget the amount they spent to renovate this office in Burleigh, but it's such an amazing office.
Yeah, when you drive past it, it's quite a crazy. It's you can tell it's something special. But again, they're trying to attract the best people. But yeah, Nick and Alex, who totally self-funded this thing. But I think the insight for me is when you take some real technical skill, and for them was like, I was going back and looking at some AFR articles. So in like 2016, 2017, articles on their growth, how they were using Snapchat, how they were using Instagram, Facebook, and then they were early to TikTok. But they had that internal prowess, and it just so happened they're selling teeth whitening, but globally.
I think from memory too, Jack, you might know this better, but I think from memory when they kicked off, they were selling third-party products until they worked out the go-to-market and what was selling and how to sell it. And then they actually engineered their own products.
Yeah, I'm not 100% on that, but I think it was just an Alibaba product to start off, like all those early e-commerce products. And then like now I think they have a team of pharmacists that are on site, like it's all internal, the R&D.
You compare that to a lot of founders that rush out and build the world's most amazing, most scalable tech stack and product before actually getting a customer. Like these guys have just nailed that go-to-market piece.
Yeah, in the pitches yesterday. So yesterday at InvestFest, there was 30 tables, 25 tables, all with the different VCs. And so it was like speed dating. And there was just two different groups of founders. The founders that turned up, that was all about the product. Note for founders, don't start a pitch with "my wife says I talk too much." Information we probably don't need to know and we're probably going to work out by ourselves. But the ones that really talked very quickly after the product about go-to-market, about lead generation and their first customer channels and all of those, that gets the brain ticking. And then you go, okay, you've got somebody here that sort of understands it. And those that were all about, no, product, and it was like pulling teeth. Like you'd ask a go-to-market type question and very quickly they'd be back into product. So you'd try and ask another go-to-market question before you know it's back into product. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very telling, isn't it? And the other one was the founders that talk, like for the first 10 minutes, it's all about them. Well, I was doing this previously. I had 20 years in this, and it's like, yeah, but we're here for an investment convo into the business. As much as we need to know about you, that comes later. And I think this is where founders get lost, is the sequencing is so important.
I always try and start, can you tell me the problem that you're solving? And at least 50% of the time. Well, I started out in consulting and my grandmother came, and it's like, fuck, okay. All right.
Especially when it's an environment like that. So for listeners who aren't familiar with it, it's speed dating, like maximum 20 minutes at a table, and then they literally ring the bell and cut you off and move to the next one. So it's you've got to be super sharp on those.
And yes, for the record, as the editor of the podcast, I'm aware of how arrogant I sound. However, in a time-constrained environment, we are trying to do the best we can with these founders.
Oh, and how much we get it wrong ourselves in our own pitches. But Melissa from Ramp was great yesterday. Like it was that fast talk, but dropping in the stats on the business. She spoke to the price point. She spoke to the number of customers. She spoke to the pain points. She spoke to the savings. And it was just immediately you got so much information, and then you have the baseline for the conversation for the next 15 minutes.
I think this is also like a good lesson from founders. At South by Southwest, I was at a masterclass in storytelling. So if anyone hasn't read Jonathan Pease's book, Winning the Room, highly recommend from a narrative perspective and how to think about the difference between, pitching, meetings, narrative storytelling. But one of the key takeaways I took from that session was the fact that he said these so-called conversational moments that you have, like a speed dating, even though it's not a pitch, it actually requires more design and more practice than a traditional stand-up and pitch. And that's because of the fact that you have to be so concise and you need to go in with a true, this is where I'm trying to get to, this is the point I'm trying to get across, and design how it can still be conversational at the same time as being really effective and cut through. So
yeah, there's a lot of ones, because a couple of the people after the pitch, I said, make sure you go and read Story Brand by Donald Miller, who's sort of like the master of the one-liner. It's like that Mark Twain quote, sorry for the long letter, I didn't have time for a short one. Because creating short, really clear messaging takes a long time and takes a lot of practice. And I don't think it helps founders when you just nod your head and say, okay. I think it helps them when you push back a little bit and say, hey, here's the areas where I think you're missing the mark. Go off and do this work. It doesn't help anybody just to sit there and nod their head.
We don't only invest in B2B tech companies. We also run missions over to the US and the UK, as well as offsite, which we open up to the broader ecosystem. That's founders, that's investors.
Our missions are about taking founders and investors into the UK and US markets so that, one, they can understand what it takes to scale into those markets and set up shop in those markets, but also to see over the horizon into the latest tech, how capital's being allocated so that they can come back home and transform and scale their business.
Yeah, I like the way we put on panels of founders that have been there and done it, panels of investors
So then that way they get some time pitching to US or UK investors, the channel partners that we put them in touch with. It's really trying to get them into market so they can establish exactly what they need to do in order to scale a really great business over there.
Yeah, we really prioritise this not being tech tourism or something that you could simply YouTube or Google or GPT the answer to from home. It's really about experiencing and immersing in these environments where you viscerally experience scale. You get to understand disruption and how these technologies are actually being applied in market, and therefore how you can navigate and build a scalable business into those markets.
If this is something of interest, shoot us a DM. And enough of that, back to the podcast.
Can you hear that beeping in the background?
Yes.
Just before, but it's not that bad.
That's the truck delivering the steel for the pool that I've started digging a hole.
Hey, that's a milestone. That's awesome.
When asked what it is, it's not in fact a pool. It is a parent respite device where I'm hoping that my energetic children will disappear for 8 hours at a time. And
Are you digging this with your own excavator that lives on your...
I've started like the bulk stuff to save some dollars, and then we'll get a professional to do the final benching bit. But I got the laser level, and
So did you actually save money if you consider the cost of the excavator, or?
Well, I've already got the excavator.
Yeah.
She meant the repairs.
Yeah.
Like, when the robots come, right, and all of civilization, and you need a cave to live in,
Yes,
you will be.
I'll be calling, crying, begging to live in that.
And after Matilda's prep teacher calls.
Wait, can we have a house update, by the way? How did the cutting in half go? When is that happening?
That hasn't started yet, but it will be. We're demolishing the other house as we speak. So I'm going to take my son up there later this afternoon, and you can watch the excavator. It is a damning indictment on humanity, though. It's just not cost effective to recycle any of that stuff. And so we've got a 25-ton excavator demolishing a lovely 5-bedroom. The pool is like 20 meters long. It's a disgrace, but it's not cost effective. It's a health and safety problem. It's far more effective just to put an excavator through it and take it to the tip.
And people blame baby boomers for our housing crisis.
Whoa. We're going to be putting more houses in.
No, that is true.
I've got no idea where we got up to. Let's just say that this is an episode that's talking about partly great founders. And so the segue could be, talking of great founders, James Leatham, CEO of Vendor Panel. Vendor Panel was one of our investments, was our first exit. James has stepped down, he announced last night, after 17 years. He founded Vendor Panel 17 years ago, which is just an incredible milestone. And when you tick off, started a business, had the business survive, then had the business flourish, and then sold the business to KKR. We're not allowed to say the number, but I believe we can say it was lots of money. Hats off to him.
Yeah. Executed it so well and still managed to stay a nice, happy, well-rounded human that is just awesome to hang out with as well. And kept his hair. I still remember we had done the DD and then we went down, but I had to leave early for some reason. And I really didn't want to leave because the convo with James, he was really aligned to the way we sort of think, I think, of leadership. But I like people that have had interesting backgrounds. And James at one point had run, tours to Antarctica? Yeah, he was an adventure tour leader, taking groups. And that was most of that conversation after you left the room. That's what we were talking about, was different adventures we had each been on. And he later said he was interviewing us to look for his own human behavioral indicators of the types of people he wants in his tent.
Then I got the opportunity just to do a few little sessions every now and then. And I really always appreciated his frankness. He had a good, healthy level of openness, but you weren't going to steamroll him. You weren't going to convince him outside. He still led from the front. And like a Chinese buffet, he would take the bits that he thought were relevant to him and the business and he was very respectful in doing so, and got the result.
Yeah, I'm stoked for him. I'm stoked for him and his family, and especially the age of his kids now, where he gets this inflection point in his life to really spend that time with them. So great outcome.
Like every interaction with James was always writing things down to take away, and always had time for me, even post the exit, in reviewing other deals. Like always, really respect James's time, and like so stoked for him. It's hard to believe 17 years, like what an innings. He doesn't look that old.
Yeah. Well, he did at the exit commit to come on an episode, so we've got to get that locked in. Now that he's back, is he back from traveling?
Yeah, he's back. Yep.
All right, let's get that locked in. But yeah, really, really happy for him. So this next item in the agenda was actually supposed to be up at the AI lunacy, so it doesn't really work here. But I just had a bit of a laugh.
I was trying to giggle at how you were trying to transition this.
Yeah, no. So there isn't a transition. I'll see if I can. But it's just that with this AI mania, right? And whether it's a mania or not, but there's a lot of stuff happening. Wall Street Bets is always a place to get a bit of a chuckle. And Skillard7 posted, "I am financially ruined short selling Korean fried chicken companies." And I'm like, come on, let's have a look. I've lost everything and I'm not sure how to continue. This week I lost 472,000 short selling Korean fried chicken companies. My idea was with the declining Korean population and the recent trend towards healthier eating and vegan diets, there was an opportunity here. This is so fucking stupid. I did some research into consumer trends in Korea and determined that it would be very lucrative. So I shorted Korean chicken companies across the board. Unfortunately, earlier this week, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang dined out at a Korean chicken restaurant called Kau Chicken in Seoul, and pictures went viral of him enjoying fried chicken and a beer. Stocks of chicken companies in Korea soared 20 to 30%, and I was margin called. Everything is gone. I don't know how to continue. How could I have not known that Korean fried chicken is the future of artificial intelligence?
That just sums up the current market so bloody well.
It does. The more serious note, though, is the disconnect in timing that I often see with investors and sometimes founder. This is a joke one, but quite often we see we're seeing this mega trend play out over the long term, but we're now going to sort of try and profit or do something in the short term, and the two don't line up. And often it's founders who don't realize that they are so early to a situation where actually they just need time for a mega trend to play out. But anyway, don't short fried chicken at the moment. Theme of the week. Before that ridiculous discussion of Korean fried chicken, it is actually related to sort of James. And James, for my theme this week is James is one of a very authentic leader and a very authentic communicator. And I think underlying one of those things is he certainly struck me as having less fear than your average individual. And one of the things I think gets in the way of fearless and authentic and clear communication is a level of fear and coming from a weak position. And there's just been a few things in the last few weeks for me where I didn't really realize like a fear that was sort of sitting there, which was holding me back on a few things professionally and personally. And that once I identified that and got that out of the way, that fearlessness and the clarity of this is exactly my position and this is what I need. And then magically, once you get to that point, then what it is you're seeking actually sort of evolves. But what made me think of that is, I don't know about you with your LinkedIn random connections, but the number of people that will go in like, "Oh, sorry to disturb you," or this one here, "I hope you don't mind me connecting with you." And this, it's like, it's from a position of such fucking weakness. Either you have some value, and spoiler alert, don't try and pitch people until you've demonstrated some value and get some trust. Talk about what it is you would like to share, or what is the value that you're putting in. Come from a position of strength, come from a position of authenticity. And if you've got some underlying fear, and we all do some work. So then that way you can come out clear, authentic, strong, And too often, founders and some investors get themselves into a position where they are fearful. Because if XYZ doesn't happen, then they're in trouble. Well, try and make sure that you're not getting yourself into that situation. So that's my theme of the week.
That's really good. I'm going to go next because mine kind of relates on a similar vein. So yesterday, as part of InvestFest, they had a panel of the interstate investors, and one was from one of Australia's largest VC funds, and she gave the generic pitch that you could read on the website pretty much verbatim. Another is from a bit more of a boutique-y impact fund, and she pitched well, like it was really clear what they do. But then the guy from Investable, I think, just nailed the freaking pitch. And the reason was he was just completely authentic. And the pitch was essentially, look, we are a small fund. We fucking need you to succeed or we die. And therefore, whatever circle of competence we have post-investment, we give that circle of competence to you because we need you to win because we are a small fund and we have to survive to the next fund.
Who was it from Investable?
Ben Lindsay. So I hadn't met Ben before, but he was just completely authentic and just spoke to the reality of where they're positioned. And it was the most memorable pitch that just connected with founders. And I think for me, this is the like authenticity makes you stand out, but actually saying something that's differentiated, that's not a cereal packet slogan answer, that isn't something someone can Google or YouTube the answer to either. Like actually aim to stand out, because in a world of AI commoditizing the shit out of everything, even human communication, you have to differentiate by being more human. And so be more authentic. Don't be afraid of differentiating and just own what he basically repitched, what is essentially a fear. Like, we are going to fail as a bloody fund. Like, and we feel this pain, right? Emerging fund manager, fund one, even more so than Investable does. Like, we absolutely, our portfolio has to bloody win, or we don't, we fail. And hence why, like, I think of some of our portcos, Don, like one in particular, I remember him asking me, like, why do you guys spend so much time on me? It's like, well, like, this is a lot of self-interest. Like, we need you to win. If you don't win, we are dead. And so I think just speaking the truth just cuts through.
And we like you, but we need you to win.
Yep.
But we like you. Not as much as you will.
I don't have a theme of the week, but I have a theme of the episode. And I think we've spoken about Airwallex. We've spoken about James Leatham, which is a great one. And then even Tribe. And like the theme there is like, you've got to stay in the game. And James was 17 years. Not sure how long Airwallex is, but it's probably the same, if not longer. And then like we're earlier on in that journey. And every business, regardless of who you are, is going to go through that pain and suffering. And SwiftX is a great example. Like 2023 posted a loss of 130 million. They could have called it quits, but they've stayed in the game. The tide's turned and now they're reaping the rewards. So it's just a good reminder for us. And like our motto is too stupid to quit, but it's also a great reminder for anyone listening who may not be going like through the good times.
I love that, Jack.
You should have gone last, Jack. That would have been a good wrap up. My theme is kind of actually tied into all of them. I've had a couple of meetings with DSD this week. There's a big event happening in Adelaide, the end of the month that Jack and I will be at. And so I've just been chatting to them about what the event's going to hold, what our role is. And I actually asked them, why do you want Tribe involved? And so, always find it interesting. And Aaron, they pretty much reverse pitch the fact that we're authentic and the fact that we run these missions. And obviously, their SA government has provided some incredible funding to founders here to join those missions. But they said that the authentic and transparent perspective that we bring will level out the conversation, and that the missions are such a highlight for the founders in SA, and particularly to get out of the echo chamber. And so I think all of that hard work is getting pitched back, which is incredible. And so I think that's just another reminder of like, when it is hard, people are listening, watching, learning. And yeah, so everyone's already stoked for March next year, the next US mission.
Yeah, I'm
That's a good one,
stoked.
Ash. And we've got to plug that. So if you are a South Australian founder, applications are open for a funded place on our US mission in March. So definitely get applying. And for those elsewhere, absolutely, you can register for a place on the mission at the moment. So sign up, get your place in. We'll be heading off to San Francisco and New York in early March next year.
Love it. All right, quick philosophy corner.
No.
Everything happens for a reason. And usually it's because someone's a dickhead. No?
Well, there's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah.
I feel like you need to show that image because this is just all kinds of weird.
Yeah, well, it is weird. So, yeah, you're not wrong. I don't even know who this bird is.
Like, where did this like occur, come up? Like, what social media platform is this come from? Is this Google?
And
like,
is
what?
this lady the dickhead? Or is she the one giving the quote that's philosophical? Like
where
there's
did
many
you
questions.
pull this from?
Libby paid for digital ads that are just targeting Don.
Yeah.
To be fair, it is coming up to Christmas. It is, walk near your partner's phone and then talk about what you want for Christmas, and they'll start getting targeted ads.
Oh,
So,
anything Maren
very
searches
true
for,
and tested.
it works. Anything Maren searches for, I suddenly get ads for.
Yeah, new husband.
I feel like that's a mirror, Don.
All right, maybe one a little bit more serious. Your future is shaped by the habits you repeat, not the goals you set. That is
Love
such
that.
a true one. And with me, it's been such a busy couple of months. I've fallen off the wagon a little bit on a few things, but I've been getting back on the bike, and I'm a big believer in the placebo effect. I don't really give a shit if it's just your brain tricking you. Great. I've found apple cider vinegar first thing in the morning actually knocks off some of my early cravings more than anything else.
Helps with your blood sugar regulation. So if you're ever going to have like a big greasy meal or like a burger or anything high sugar, apple cider vinegar and a little shot of water before you eat helps to have your blood sugar not spike, but actually stay a little bit more stable as well.
Aaron, I've seen that you've just tried to copy this next one to review it first. That's not allowed. That's not allowed. You have to just trust. All right.
Trust. Yeah.
So this is Jimmy Carr. I really like Jimmy Carr because he's like both ends of the spectrum. He's actually one of the smartest people, I think, going around, but he has a filthy mouth and he has some very aggressive jokes. But again, we come into the end of the year, and I think a bit of self-care isn't the worst thing in the world for some people. And I think he just made an interesting set of points here that I think if you want to have a big 26, maybe consider this. It's
very healthy to have an inner critic, but it's also there's the golden rule, and then there's the platinum rule, right? There's the treat others as you want to be treated, and then there's the treat yourself as you treat others. Most people are very kind. Like, you're nicer to me than you are to yourself. Like, if you said the shit you say to yourself to me, we wouldn't be friends. And I think that thing of like the inner critic has to be, it's as long as it's process driven, I think it's very, very healthy. I think it's like imposter syndrome. It's okay, feel like an imposter for a while, as long as you can get that to a granular level where it gives you something to work on. Like, the inner critic can't just be like, that's bad. It's got to be, oh, that didn't work, so we need to change it. Or that one's not going to work, so we're going to write something new. It's got to be something that's like you're working towards something. You're aiming up. Yeah. And I think criticism is very important.
There's a lot in that one that I think is relevant.
John, that was great. I actually liked that. We can just end.
He does have some great insights. Like, some of the things that he shares are phenomenal. This is an interesting. That inner critic. So I caught myself this might be an overshare. In the shower yesterday, I was berating myself. Like, I seem to be getting stuck.
You were what?
Berating, internally in my head. And the language I use to myself is very fucking hell, Berkby. Like, what are you doing? And it's around specific things that I've just had a block on recently. But I feel like it's part of my process. The question is it effective, or is there a more effective means? Like, how do I affect the change is what he's talking about there.
Well, what I like was that you've got to get it granular, and it's got to then be a process, and then it's got to be to a point where you can say, okay, what are we going to do about it? And I think with a lot of people that I interact with is they don't have those next two steps. And I think that's just the important bit. And I think he's right. You've got to have some self-criticism, and you've got to have people around you that are willing to go, hey, this isn't cricket. But it's then the next steps. And I think the people that do really well subconsciously or consciously have it that they can get to the next bits.
Yeah, and bringing it back to the bit before, it's like turning it into a habit. So the corrective action then has to become habitual to the point that it's the new neural pathway. And that's the bit that I'm trying to embed at the moment. So that was good content, Don.
I will say that AI is very helpful for me in this. Like when I get stuck in this like negative rhetoric and I like know I'm stuck, but I don't know how to like move forward and like what the tiny step is I can do to shift it, I'll just put it into my agent and I'll have a conversation about it. And then I'll be like, can you help me form a habit around this? And it actually breaks down how you can shift that and gives me first little steps, because I find that once I have the clear process, like us, the three of you know, my brain is extremely process driven. And so if I can't see step 1, but I know where step 10 is, for the hardest part with me is just getting step 1 down. Once I get to step 1, my brain's like, phew. And so I have an agent for this, and I find it very, very helpful to have that conversation. And then it's not always just calling Tim and being like, ah! He also lacks it.
Can we
get an hourly count of like hours spent with agent versus hours spent with Tim, like a weekly?
And a time.
Honestly,
and a correlation to relationship happiness.
Like the poor guy. Some weeks I'm just like, because Dad used to take a lot of the load, and like I'll just be like, I'll call him and I'll just be like, and then I'll just hang up the phone, and like I just needed to like, and then he'll just send me a text like 10 minutes later, are you okay now? And I'll go, hey, I'm fine. I've moved on to the next thing now. Like I'm all good. And he's like, right. And a monthly check-in, he was just like, yeah, so your dad like did a lot of like the load of your mental health that I didn't like really realize. And I was like, yeah, I've started building an agent for it so I can like share it between the agent and you. It's okay. Like I've realized that you're taking too much of the burden.
But I think broadly, these things are, the older I get, a bit like a fart. They're better out than in. And having it's true though, having the trusted relationship, having the safety where you can just go and express without problem solving. So one of the things I've tried to do more with the portfolio, and they'll tell me whether I'm succeeding or not, at least in the beginning time, is not to come to solutions for a while, unless I've been able to go very clearly, yeah, I get it, I hear you, before getting into the next bit, because I think it's just important that it comes out, and they feel like they have a safe space to be able to do that, because this journey can be difficult. And it can be hard on our side. You know, we have fiduciary duties and we have expectations and LPs and whatever else. But if you think of it from a systemic process that takes a bit more of a human-centered approach, okay, how do we help ultimately get great performance? Well, there's a series of steps that our reptilian brains that are half a chromosome away from a chimpanzee can sort of benefit from.
This is a big one for me, practicing exactly that, like in relationship, in a lot of things, but particularly parenting. And as the kids are now teenage years, no matter how much you can clearly see what's about to happen next on the back of your kids' choices, just sitting in the moment, not going into problem solving mode, because I've got this little mantra, which was actually the TLC crew gave me this, but it's, I'm robbing them of the opportunity for growth if I step in and give the answer. And I love that. It's become a very powerful little mantra to live by. So practicing empathy, letting them feel understood and heard, but then letting them make the choice and letting them feel the consequence. And it's similar with the portfolio. Like if we just rush in and problem solve, then there'll be probably a default like leadership that then's expected, and then we become having to run the businesses versus building the capability and competence within the portfolio.
Yeah, I always ask, do you want to vent? Do you want to problem solve, or do you want a solution?
Yeah, see, my problem is detecting it early in the relationship and knowing which hat I'm supposed to be wearing.
No, I just ask. Like when they start something,
That is
I'm
brilliant. I need to adopt that.
Like because I'm very like problem solve centric, where I'll just be like, okay, would X, Y, and Z. And like half the time that's wrong. So I'm just like, do you want to vent? Do you want to problem solve? Or do you want the solution? Do you want me to tell you?
Where's that clip of the woman with the knife in her head? And the guy's like, you've got a knife in your head? Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, it's not about the nail. Given we're down the rabbit hole, I'll play this little video for you. Like, not forever. We're not trying to turn this whole organization into a fucking hippie circle, but maybe I am. I don't know. Hang on. But I think it's helpful if you find yourself in a position trying to help others. Okay, let me press play.
Perhaps the greatest gift we can give to other people is just to listen.
Yeah, exactly, because they feel heard. But it's interesting to listen and to not get entrapped in their mind. To listen, but to let it go. Mm-hmm. But to hear them, but not just buy it, but hear it. Yeah.
Not to get caught up in that.
I often say, I hear you.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes that frustrates people because they don't want to just be heard, they want to be reacted to.
They want to entangle you.
They want to entangle you. There was a great lady that came to visit me. She was a seamstress, and she came in with a tale of pity about how her husband had left her, and she'd worked her fingers to the bone. She showed me to take care of these girls, and now this girl had turned bad, and it took her about 10 minutes to tell me. And I listened as hard as I could, and when she got all done, I said, I hear you. She wasn't satisfied, and she told me the whole story all over again. And when she got all done, I said, I hear you. And at that moment, I was just looking at her, and she said, you know, she said, I was kind of a hellion when I was a girl, too. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, she came up for air.
Yeah.
I heard her, but I didn't climb in, because she had sucked everybody. Oh, you poor dear. Oh, my. Oh, you know, that whole thing.
And it's so important, I think, for people to hear themselves as they tell their stories, is how they grow.
And then you become a mirror for them to see their own trip.
Mm-hmm.
And if they want to see it, they can. And if they don't, that's up to them. Mm-hmm. I realized you morally have no right to take away another human being's suffering. That's a big one.
That is a big one.
I know it. I know it. Well, especially if they're a family and you love them. You want to take away their suffering. And that is the quickest way to alienate them, to create more paranoia, because you don't even know why they're suffering. You don't understand.
So and then you see it so often when founders and others get into a almost like victim-y kind of thing, and what they're seeking is that response of effectively climbing into the situation with them, but being able to just more say, I hear it, I hear you, and I've been there, and I feel it, but then let them do the processing, because very quickly, if they get that opportunity, they'll find a solution. They generally know what the solution is, but often the victimhood is holding them back, and too often people climb into that story.
That last bit really hit home. Like, no moral obligation to rob someone else of that opportunity. Like that was powerful.
All right, I think we can get to the real meat of this episode, which is the Sharts.
We almost need like a Woo Woo Wednesday episode where we just go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, I like it. The woo woo. So this is, and I've got a little story to go with this. This is a chart for those at home. This is the private credit market in the US, but the Australian version is still the same. Private credit globally is going through the roof. And so I think in last week or the week before, I mentioned that we'd sold a development that I'm part of. It's on a 2-year contract. We've got to get some DAs and some things. So it's a put and call structure, which is tax effective, but the money's going to take a little while. I then want to do some other bits and pieces. So I either wait. The problem is with traditional banking is cash flow lending. So CBA, NAB, ANZ, they look at your income. And so I know people worth hundreds of millions of dollars that recently weren't able to get a loan because actually their assets were huge, but their income, because they try and keep their income low to avoid tax. But now these private credit providers, and I found one, now it's not cheap, so it's like 16%, but for if you've got the right deal and you want the funding, they only needed 2 valuations from an agent. And I was like, what? And so I've got a company that's got a property in it, And so I didn't even need to use that structure. It's like, so if I just get 2 agent letterhead valuations, as long as the LVR is below 60%, luckily this one will be like below 20%, they will just take the agent's one, do no val. And I'm surely this is the kind of thing that happened in the run up to the GFC. So if you got yourself some marginal land, but got 2 agents and you got them to give you a val that was through the roof, as long as the facility you were taking out was 60% or less, with this particular private credit firm, they give you 60% of the agent's valuation. Unbelievable.
What's the term on the credit?
Up to 2 years.
And they just keep repeating that.
Yeah.
Just keep rolling them up, and we're back in the CDCs. And
exactly. Now, Macquarie's come out this week because you also don't need a credit license or a financial service license to provide property investment advice. That's why on TikTok and Instagram, you've got all these people. Now, Macquarie is so concerned, they've stopped all property lending to companies and trusts because they reckon the amount of fraud that's going on at the moment, because people are setting up special purpose vehicles and then not disclosing other related debt that they're a guarantor of, and they've got no real way of tracking it. So anyway, this chart is just up and to the right of private credit, and I think that this is the next. There's something brewing here. This next chart, this plots the S&P 500 and job openings, and it's interesting the correlation up until 2023 with the launch of ChatGPT has always been reasonably well, that when there's a downturn in the market, there's a downturn in job openings, when there's an uptick in the market, and that makes sense. But for the first time, going back 20-something years, oh, my computer screen's just turned off. Job openings is not keeping up with the market. And another chart that shows this, going back to 2010, this is corporate profits in billions of dollars, and then non-farm private payrolls. And yes, there was the big COVID drop, but non-farm payrolls are not back to the original trend, even though corporate profits are going through the roof. And so more money is flowing to the corporate, less to the human. This chart, it's not, all of these other ones are the S&P 500, right? Here's the S&P 493 with then the Magnificent 7 separated, and those 7 companies are effectively the 90% of the returns. Like the amount of return that's sitting on their shoulders is unbelievable. And this is a chart going back to 2016, and it really started to diverge in 17, 18, and then post-COVID just gone crazy. So COVID stimulus plus AI equals those 7 companies going crazy. But not everybody thinks it's sustainable. So Michael Burry, who was one of the big short people who predicted the financial crisis and made $1 billion, he released for the first time in a long time his 13F, which is effectively disclosing all of his positions. And he has gone hardcore short using a whole lot of synthetic derivatives. The only thing is that he first took out his shorts in the GFC in 2005, and they didn't start paying off until 2008. And in this world, being early is indistinguishable from being wrong. I think he's probably broadly right, because every big run-up, there is the human nature, but this trying to pick it is difficult. But one of the things, we've discussed this a few times, that what's called the Buffett indicator, the US market cap to US GDP ratio, is about to go higher than what it was in the peak of COVID. And that was higher than what it was in the GFC and the tech wreck. And so by a lot of measures, we continue to be in bubble territory. I personally don't like linear measures because we live in an exponential world. So I think it's probably okay for this ratio each cycle to get higher and higher, because we are in an exponential world. But this next chart is actually Berkshire Hathaway going to 1979. And it has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 10 drawdowns more than 25%, 5 more than 30%, a few 50%, and a few like 13 and 16s. So, but if you just have a look at that period of time, it is just up and to the right. And the older I get, this idea of trying to markets on the short side, I will probably have a few flutters soon, just because I'm a degenerate and I need to have stuff to talk about at barbecues. But outside of that, the majority, I think, should just be following the trend. This chart is Palantir's valuation among all other S&P 500 stocks, and it looks at the forward price to sales ratio and the forward price to earnings ratio. So the majority are sort of sub 100. So NVIDIA relative is still like 20 times forward earnings, 20 times forward sales. But Palantir is actually 200 times or 230 times forward earnings and 85 times sales. Boeing, interestingly, is almost like only 1 time sales, but because of the trouble they're in, it's like 350 times forward earnings. Tesla is another outlier, which is pretty crazy, whether that's sustainable. But yeah, Palantir is certainly got a lot of expectations on its shoulders.
That's why it was in the puts along with NVIDIA.
In Michael Burry's,
Yeah.
And so this is market volatility going back to 2023, having a look at the VIX, the NASVOL, OVX, just a lot of the volatility, I guess, indices. We had that spike not that long ago, but if you just have a look since 2003, every time it comes back down, it's coming back down to a slightly higher level. So there is this just underlying creeping up of volatility. And what tends to happen is that tends to creep up until something breaks. I will probably throw a few options on some vol things in the future, but probably will have to wait until the pool is paid for. This chart I thought crazy, given I'm one of these morons. So this is a chart looking at Domino's, Subway, Pizza Hut, Fishbowl, Nando's, GYG, and it plots the price if you were to drive to the restaurant, the price that's on Uber, then you add in your service fee and your delivery fee. And I didn't realize every one of these places, the price on Uber is a lot more than the restaurant. For some stupid reason, I just would have thought that the price on Uber was roughly the same, and then you were paying a service fee and a delivery fee. But actually, all of these restaurants, the reason why you turn up and they're giving such priority to Uber, I had always wondered this. And if you turn up, you can sort of get fucked now. The margin is a lot better on Uber and other things because Australia needs interest rates to be set at 20% because there's so much money flowing around and we're lazy idiots.
I can't believe you didn't notice this.
But did they up the price because Uber whacks
They
them
take
with
a cut. Yeah.
Yes, I think they're still getting the same margin done.
Right.
So then that's why they just increase it to get the same as if I come into store.
But we have
I don't know
Domino's.
how much of that percentage though, Jack, is covered in the service fee versus the increase in platform price versus they just want to push you to order direct.
Yeah. I'm not sure either. But yeah, I think I saw on LinkedIn, Australia is the number one for Uber Eats.
Yeah.
Percentage to population.
Yeah.
I've used it once.
No, the problem for me, when I do my quarterly expenses and I then filter by name, there's 2 problems. There's Bunnings and there's Uber Eats. And they are a real drag on the Mackenzie household.
How often are you ordering Uber Eats?
Well, with 3 kids, and then we do Sunday Fun Day with the family. We're probably getting twice a week. I always get sushi. I'm trying.
Trying what?
To eat a little healthier. And so if we are ordering Uber that night, Libby then gets gyros and the kids chicken nuggets. So we'll have multiple deliveries when it's an Uber night. And then on Sunday Fun Day, it's because we have 20 something people turning up. It's like, take your pizza and be thankful.
This is wild to me.
Okay.
Absolutely wild.
So this is a chart of density of people per square kilometre based on different states across the world, which I guess we all know. But if Australia wants to partly solve its housing crisis, it's probably time that we stop bulldozing good farmland to put single dwellings on it and maybe get a bit more used to multi-apartment living. He says from his acreage
While
property.
bulldozing a house down.
Yeah, whilst building. M102. Well, at least I'm living on.
I'm helping this issue. I'm
Yes.
an apartment liver. I love it.
So this is an interesting chart. This is the response relationship between total physical activity and digestive system cancer risk. So as you would expect, it goes down, but actually there's a certain amount of activity per week where your digestive system cancer risk actually starts to go up. I'm not anywhere near that at the moment, but interesting.
Who's doing 75 hours a week?
People that are about to die. So this is like a health part. I found some weird things. Effect of reducing dietary fiber. I don't understand this chart. I'm trying to work it out because like baseline diet, the percentage symptomatic of a baseline diet, is that red bar effectively saying 100% of a baseline diet is constipation? So the options are constipation, strain, bloating, anal bleeding, pain. It doesn't make sense, does it? Because then it's almost saying like constipation goes down when you reduce your fiber.
Reduce your fiber, which makes zero sense. Where is this from, Don?
Well, this is the problem. I just saw it and...
Effective reduce.
This does not feel right at all.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Maybe it's opposites day.
We'll leave that. So this is a chart of the birth defects chances, the chances of a congenital anomaly. So unrelated. So when you married someone unrelated, when you're over 40, over 50 mothers, but like, why is there still the need to measure first cousins and older first cousins? And the people that made this chart is called Information is Beautiful.
I'm surprised there's not much of a step change. Fathers over 40 versus fathers over 50.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a chart, isn't it? So it deserves to be in. I'm gonna leave some for next week. This is too many. But I had how common is your baby, your birthday, how women rate attractiveness of men. Let's keep something interesting for next week. That was a big amount of charts. A lot of energy this week. What are we looking forward to?
I'm going to Sydney for the weekend.
Cool.
Yeah. See two of my best friends who moved up there. So I'm going to spend the weekend with them. Leave Tim alone. Give him a break.
Yeah, well, it sounds like he needs his own AI just to help him.
Are you taking your agent?
I built him one, don't worry.
What was that, Jack?
Are you taking your agent to Sydney as well?
In my pocket at all times. I don't know why you think that's funny.
I'm looking forward to catching up with Nick, who's a good friend of Tribe. He's in town for this week, and I'm just going to catch up quickly for 2 beers before he flies off.
Wait, is this Singapore, Nick?
Yeah, he's in Adelaide for a week.
Oh, so good.
What time are you on at the airport at? Just out of curiosity.
6 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Oh, tomorrow, because yeah, I'm going to meet Nick at the airport for a few beers.
At the airport?
Yeah, he didn't have time, and I'm working from home, so it was like, let's catch up for a few beers there.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. You're going to park at IKEA and walk across?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not paying for parking.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to this.
Manager, baby.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to this lunch down the Gold Coast, which I've got to jump in the car for now. And then back on the Goldie on Saturday for a friend's housewarming / Chrissy party. And otherwise packing. The joy of packing.
I've drilled 82 holes for 82 new plants at home. So I'm looking forward to a weekend of some outside physical exercise, planting in 90% humidity.
Make
And
sure
I've got
you keep all your receipts from Bunnings. You can return them if they die within 12 months.
Is that a true statement?
Is that real?
Yeah. How do you not know this?
Every plant I've ever bought died within 12 months.
Well, I haven't bought it from Bunnings. I've bought it off a wholesaler or Facebook Marketplace and paying cash.
Yeah, no. See, I'm all over these things. I'm very good at returning useless things.
He's going to mail the receipt afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But wait a second. So I take a dead plant back into the returns desk and just go...
Yeah, with your receipt. And now either refund you or you'll get a new one, as long as it's within 12 months.
I'm just going to go find dead plants in the street.
Well, you have to have the receipt.
Well, I get that
along
bit,
with the
but...
right plant.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be the plant on the thing. Like, it can't just be like... I bought a bird of paradise and here's a succulent.
But the way I kill a plant, they need to do DNA analysis. I can see a funding model for Tribe here.
Yeah, so that's what I'm looking forward to.
Amazing. Oh, and I'll be able to come to the Christmas party. I have to come up to Brizzy.
Sweet.
Oh, nice. Is that next week? No,
No.
December.
No, but I just remember
It'll feel like next week by the time we get there.
Yeah.
Things I'm looking forward to. I was like, oh yeah, I can come. I just want my
Sweet.
tickets.
Oh, it's going to be a good day.
The calendar says secret event.
Yes. Oh, we need
Does
to catch up if possible before that. We should actually, have a strategy chinwag and
Yeah,
possible.
and is it a secret event because it's not booked yet?
No, I've actually booked it. I've booked this one. I will share details.
I love it.
Right, then Ash will probably have to brief you about Tribe Christmas parties.
Okay.
Yeah, they get
maybe off air.
they get aggressive.
Yeah.
They get aggressive, they get mean, and it's generally me in my pajamas being escorted from karaoke bars at 11 o'clock.
Oh, no. I will be late. I'll be gone. Don't worry. Let's pass my bedtime. I'm very good at knowing when to pull the ripcord. It's fine.
There'll be a briefing note.
Maybe just call me. Let's maybe not put it in writing. It feels.
That's a good call.
All right. Thanks, team.
Thanks, Sam.